Welcome back, everyone. So, one of the first things that a community professional considers when building their online community is the tech stack that they would use. And the tech stack on which you build your community upon will directly determine its performance and usability. But that's not all. The tech stack that you select may come with some hidden challenges that might hinder the growth of your online community. And that's what our next panel is going to be about: the ultimate technology infrastructure for Communities 3.0. We have an incredible panel of speakers to talk about the whole nine yards of tech infrastructure in online communities. And to moderate this panel, we have with us Garima Aneja, who's the product marketing lead at Search Unify. Over to you, Garima.
Thank you so much, Guncha. I now like to welcome our audience to the next session for the day, the Ultimate Technology Infrastructure for Communities 3.0. But first off, we have an exciting panel lined up, so starting off with introductions. We have joining us today Tirza Austin, who is the Senior Online Community Manager for American Society of Civil Engineers. She possesses extensive hands-on experience with community launch, content strategy, and member engagement. Welcome, Tirza, to the session.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, we have Michael Puhala, who is the VP of Solution Strategy at Khoros. He has had a rich experience leading sales and solution strategy for digital engagement solutions and has been instrumental in shaping community investment strategies for global enterprises. Welcome, Michael, to the panel.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Next up, we have Vishal Sharma, who is the CTO of Search Unify. He has more than 15 years experience working on support optimization models and has enabled improved self-service outcomes with the power of AI. He is the central point for technology innovation at Search Unify, a leading unified cognitive platform for support and self-service. Welcome, Vishal, to the panel.
Thanks, Karima. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Awesome. So, kicking off the panel, Tirza, starting off with you, if I may. I happened to chance upon your experience of managing the online community at the American Society of Civil Engineers, and I was amazed by how your efforts at actually managing that community helped double the initial member goal of 10,000 users in a year, and the community site traffic almost tripled in a short period of time. And I'm sure achieving these amazing numbers would have met their own challenges, both technology-wise and infrastructure-wise. So for the audience, would you like to enlighten us how you overcame those challenges? And I'm sure a lot of the members in our audience are community managers, and they'll learn a lot from your tips and tricks.
Yeah, absolutely. So the perspective that I bring to this panel, and I'm honored to be here with such great other panelists that probably have much more technical ability than I do. But I am definitely the nitty-gritty, in the weeds type community manager that I'm really looking at the community and what we can do and how we can integrate it within the platforms that we use at the society level, and then what the community can do to serve the society. And so the initiative or program that you were just talking about was something that we did, was a student and younger member initiative that we had worked on, that essentially our board came down and directed, like, okay, we want a student and younger member benefit that we want to roll out in January. And it's October. So what can you do, right, to roll this out and really create a platform or a community experience for students and younger members to really get engaged and really hit that touch point, right, as a member benefit? And we were able to say, and full disclosure, we use Higher Logic as a community platform. And there's a lot of things that Higher Logic does, automation, whatnot, and our integration is pretty sophisticated as far as how that works. So we were able to say, okay, in 2 months, we can set up this platform, we can get it up and running, we can use it as a CMS, and we can do all of these things to really support society goals and society initiatives. And so that's something from a tech stack perspective. And throughout the pandemic over the past 2 years or so, there are many things that we had to move, we had to be agile, we had to be quick. And a lot of our other platforms or tech stack weren't as agile maybe as our community platform was. So we were able to do things from a community platform perspective. For instance, also we set up a COVID resources page, right, that I was able to set up within the community. We could start a discussion list. There were so many things that we're able to do within a community platform. And really the tech stack, like within the community, is something that really, the community platform really supports our tech stack and really fills in a lot of gaps that maybe we don't have in other places. So I think that's just so important as a community manager to be aware of ways that your community platform can really support the community and your organization's goals. So long answer, but hopefully that answered your question.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tirza. And what you just mentioned, Michael, coming to you. So, like Tirza mentioned, quick and agile, and especially, we've seen how pandemic has had put increasing pressure on online communities and self-service spaces. So, I believe a lot of the community managers in our audience would already be building their community budgets for 2023. And since we are talking today about the right technology infrastructure for Communities 3.0, what are your tips and tricks and suggestions on choosing a platform that not only meets your present community needs, but is also, future-proof or scalable enough to meet those kind of future exigencies?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think scalability is a key point in kind of future-proofing for what you're looking at tech stack. And one indicator, and I think maybe even test for, is the robustness of the API underneath the stack. You don't have to be a technical community manager to at least understand where the intersection points are, where the integration points are. And I think sometimes when you're evaluating a community provider, the API is not going to come out front and center as a feature or capability or as something, but it is something to test for. And so I would ask, so if I'm evaluating any vendor, and of course we're a little bit biased, I come from the vendor, a specific vendor, Khoros, but I would evaluate and look for examples in the wild where the API is being utilized in a variety of ways. I think one, integrations, maturity of integrations that it has with both, that are either natively built by the vendor itself or integrations that are built by partners. So a good example of this is Grazini's Search Unify. So as a federated search technology, utilizing the underlying APIs in multiple sources of content, Khoros being one of them, so that's an area kind of to test for, and to make sure where is the maturity in and around the integration, which will then also speak to its the API level. We're seeing a kind of a trend and interest in, for example, headless communities. So that's kind of taking out the application state as a whole from said vendor and being able to just call microservices from the community to build that in a community everywhere approach. And so, I think we're getting one identifying factor of Communities 3.0 is that it's not just looked at as a location and a part of navigation, siloed part of the website, but that we can actually bring community services kind of more horizontally across to the digital experience for consumers. At the end of the day, this has to be better experience for end users. It also has to be a better experience for people like Tirza. It's like the community manager and managing all of these. It has to be easy for them to manage, easy to push information out to that, easy to connect multiple sources. So I would say, one, scalability is ultimately the robustness of the API, maturity of the vision and the roadmap as what they're looking for in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. And I think well said in terms of how technology is actually a great enabler in enabling that sense of fluidity across platforms and across integrations. Vishal, the other day I was reading a report by IDC which says that the overall industry for AI investments will actually reach $100 billion in 2023, and I'm sure a major part of the investment will still go to the self-service and online community space. So as someone who has worked with leading community managers and self-service leaders in planning their AI adoption and strategy formulation, what would you suggest are some of the short-term, medium-term, and long-term use cases on AI for online communities?
Yeah, so I think I just hope that community managers will get their share of investment for all the AI initiatives. But before I even talk about some of the things on the AI side, I strongly agree with the point that Michael made. We've seen, as part of our system integrator part of our business, we've seen every day customers evaluating the community platforms. And I'd say the biggest mistake is when you start evaluating, you feel like, okay, let's just look at the time to value, okay? I don't need to do too many customizations. I don't need to do too many integrations. Everything is out of the box. let's just use that, and within like 15-20 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the stuff will be up and running. And then suddenly, probably 6 months, 1 year down the line, you see that, okay, now you're kind of like locked into a system which cannot integrate with other web properties, other custom facing channels. You'll have to understand that at any point of time, you're running 5 to 6 different web properties for your customers, help centers, customer support centers, communities. So you can't just run away from the need of integrations. And which is why I think this is a very, very important point that Michael made, that you got to make sure that you'll have to do that research of looking at whether enough APIs and integrations are available with your current platform. Can that scale to that level when you see the growth in the community? Because from day one, may not be that's not required on day one, but at least when you scale, you need all of that system. And I can tell you that that's really a pain to do that. So, but now coming back to your question on the AI initiatives, I wish if I could give you like a top 5 or a top 10 kind of thing. You should look for the AI initiatives on community platforms. But I can tell you based on my experience that there are certainly some I would say low-hanging fruits or quick wins you have. And if I need to categorize them, I would say I think it's more like setting up the foundation for the larger AI projects and community platforms. And I've just put that into 2 pieces, or broadly divided that into 2 categories. Number one, I think you better invest in a technology, or you do some sort of a research or project, or you make sure that your platform gives you true access to customer 360 analytics. That's very important. I can tell you, I mean, any AI initiative at the end of the day is only going to be successful if you have the right amount of data and the signals in the system. Unfortunately, I've seen so many community managers doing so many projects on communities. Like the other day, I was seeing that there was one project going on, revamping the whole landing page of the community. And we would just add this widget, the other widget, and we'll make all of those changes on the main landing page and everything. And then when I started looking at the traffic, 90% of the traffic was actually coming from Google on the inner pages. And there was only like 10-15% audience who were actually spending time on the main landing page. But it was like a big project. For 2 months, they wanted to spend a lot of time on revamping the whole main landing page and the navigation of the site. So I think that access to the true customer journey, where the customer is spending time in community on different pages or groups, everything, and how much time they're spending is very important. The other piece is, if you see, and I usually tell different people in different conversations whenever we speak about product forums or product communities, that if you see, at the end of the day, you're not going to these product communities or forums for a dose of dopamine. I mean, for that, there are enough places outside, right? I think I have a problem, and all I need is just answer and a quick solution to my problem. I'm stuck with something within the product. I would just go to community. I would just assume that there'll be a first discussion thread. I look for will have the answer. But unfortunately, that's not the case. They're like big, huge communities out there. And if you see, no one is actually looking at the health of the content in those communities. So I think, again, look at some sort of a tech which actually helps you to do a baseline of the health of the content. That could be how much duplicate content you have. Like you do a quick search and you would see like hundreds of threads on the same topic in the community. As a user, it is so difficult for me to just find out which one I need to look at and which one is going to give me the answer. Spam is a standard problem in communities. Offensive language is another problem. A lot of people are talking about competition. And then I think one of the things which we really miss in the content is, as I said, we really don't look at the community content in terms of the age of that content. Usually you look at your official documentation, official knowledge base, but the conversations which are happening in the community, no one is actually looking at that the thread which started 1 year ago, is that still relevant when the user would find that thread for a problem that he's facing today? No one is looking at that, right? I mean, that's another area where you need some sort of a system that generates these insights for you. So this is more about how do you can like set up a baseline and kind of like a foundation for AI. But the true I would say the AI projects are more of when you're ready with all of this data. Then I think the interesting things that at least we are doing with our different customers are are more of like, how do you help the customers do and all of the stuff that I'm mentioning here is completely platform agnostic. And Michael and Teresa, you guys can probably jump in, because I don't think this is something you should be building outside the community and just deploy it on any platform that you're using. So like you should have something which helps you do automatic tagging. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I would draft on the point around the landing page investment versus navigation investment. Yeah. So I think you should spend as much time in and around the planning strategy investment into the navigation of the community, knowing that any community landing page, every community page is a landing page. Or entrance into the community, not just the front door of the community. So I think there's too little investment into a global navigation, integrating that into the global, but also sub-community navigation, I think is a really important point. And then the way that I view AI, and I'd be interested to see here, like from a practitioner standpoint, what Teresa is thinking about it and how our organization is thinking about it. But I would dissect it into two different segments. One is there's back-end AI that helps the brand understand the community, and like you said, tagging and the way the analytics and understanding prioritization, maybe perhaps even assigning SLAs. Like there's certain intelligence that can be. I'm a big proponent, or maybe even opponent, of calling every algorithm an AI. I mean, I think it's like some people just synonymously use algorithms and artificial intelligence together, and they're different. Or at least algorithms can be a part of AI. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. But then the other side of it is the front end. And so kind of where is AI helpful? I think that's where I think a lot of people are trying to move to, like, oh, how does AI going to help community, improve the experience? And I'm outside of maybe some bot conversational flow and helping, like, hey, I see that you're searching for this. Maybe here's some additional sources of content. So, for example, can a bot understand click path and context to then pull from federated search to pull in relevant results that would be otherwise unseen and unknown to that end user? I think that's a good use case for artificial intelligence in a practical sense. But I think we need to kind of, I think AI is getting thrown around a little bit too loosely, and it's a buzzword. But I'm curious to know, from, again, a practitioner perspective on artificial intelligence, and kind of like, what does that look like in the roadmap for your organization, Teresa?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, go ahead. Sorry, Rosa.
No, so I was just going to say, again, all these things sound great. And it's one of those things that we recently redid our website, and we're doing many different projects, right, where we're talking about AI and personalization and all these great things. And really, Michael, what you were saying is okay, we'd really love to look at click-throughs. What are people clicking on? What content is displaying on their webpage? To my knowledge, I don't know of tools that are available. I mean, I don't know if Koros has that available, right? I don't know if there's any other integrations with other websites, but I don't think as community professionals that we're quite there yet to the level of AI and personalization that we really would like to have, especially at a nonprofit organization. But
yeah, personalization's been an interesting buzzword in community ever since I've been a part of it, which is 2010. It's kind of been it's a little bit of a holy grail element, but yeah, I don't see a lot of really great personalization examples in community, and I think it can be sometimes that's a dangerous path to heavily personalize content where we're maybe ignoring some other user paths. One of the better examples that I've seen is Microsoft.community, where it's an opt-in personalization because Microsoft's so broad, 160 different business units. So I can opt into the areas in community that I'm interested in, and then that activity feed is then focused only on those areas that I've opted into, that I'm interested in, because of the breadth of all the other things at Microsoft that I'm just not interested in. So that's a level of of more explicit personalization rather than implicit.
Yeah, you still have to go in and mark those things. That exists in many platforms, but it's not, to me, that's not AI, right? That's...
Yeah, you brought a valid point, Teresa. I think this is one of the key challenges I've seen is you would hope that the community users would tick some boxes, would fill the preference centers, and then you run the personalization on top of that. Unfortunately, I have not seen community members doing that, pretty often, right? And one of the interesting way we are solving that I've seen is that, again, like, not a fit for everywhere, but the true power of these federated search engines is that since they are integrated in your other systems as well, within the product as well, sometimes to surface the help, within your support center as well, within community as well. So the true power of these engines is that when they see the behavior of the user, when the user is consuming the content at certain point of time, let's say like 1 month, 2 months down the line, the engines will have some information of the user persona. Now, technically, you can use these engines instead of the static profiles of the user to do some sort of a personalization. And I've seen that working at some places we've not seen that very successful, but at least it can give you a good start if you feel like there's absolutely no preference center or no information that the user is ready to opt in or fill in through the checkboxes. So that's one thing which has been successful at certain points. But other things that I wanted to kind of like quickly talk about is one of the other interesting project we were doing is to do some sort of a sentiment analysis, because communities is one point where any possible escalation of tomorrow or future is something you can just smell that in community. So at times there will be discussions which can actually give you those signals. There are definitely some AI technologies and AI algorithms available now. You can actually read that information in community threads. It can probably auto-escalate those discussions into cases to your support system as well. And automatic responses like chatbots and all those kind of things are fairly standard, Michael. But I would say that you'll have to create a balance. At the end of the day, you don't want to make it sound like completely AI-driven kind of experience. That element of human touch has to be there, even if you're using that community for self-service or support. I'm a strong believer that if it is a P1, something is down, let's make it very easy for the customer to navigate and reach out to the support agent. And the whole self-service experience in the forum, in the community, should not act as a point of friction. Versus if it is something which is like a very popular self-service kind of a question, let's just understand the intent. Let's just throw that channel personalization. Let's just throw the bot in front of the user and then run the whole dialogue through the chatbot on the community platform. So I think we'll have to create that balance. I also believe that you gotta make sure that it's not really completely automatic and completely AI driven. But there are definitely lots of technologies which you can leverage now.
Thanks, Vishal.
Yeah,
Thanks,
another
Michael. Thanks,
example
Teresa.
of
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, another example just
Go
real
ahead.
quickly is SAS Institute is an interesting case for personalization in that they built, using some of their own technologies and Kubernetes, our APIs, a related content search. So rather than it relying on the vendors, just doing a search for keywords, just a pretty simple related content box on something, they're looking at more than just, they're looking at click path behavior, they're looking at read behavior, they're looking at other customer profile data in products that they own, and then combining all of that and then putting that in a related search that is SAS Institute's kind of own kind of version of this. So that's a good example of like going back to the scalability or kind of future-proofing communities is, does this platform allow me to innovate on top of? Can I build some really robust solutions on top of? And I think that's an important point to consider. And companies like SAS, Microsoft, whatnot are building really, like, some of the best innovation happening in community, if I can say it, is not happening from vendors. It's happening from customers or partners that are building on top of these solutions.
That's totally true. And I had this conversation actually with my boss the other day, but a part of that requires community teams, right, to actually be doing that. And, from talking to other community managers, some of these platforms, like you said, like Koros, I think HireLogic, there's a bunch of community platforms that give you the ability to build out customized things. Like we have an integration right now that I have a colleague that's not on our community team, but just likes to play with technology. And he built out an integration with Form.io and Etherpad. So he's got APIs coming in to do like real-time collaboration tools. He's got project management tools like flowing into our community, like super cool, super awesome. But like some platforms allow you to do that, some platforms don't. But not every community team has the ability to make those customizations. And like I feel like I'm a pretty astute user of at least of our community platform, where I can make lots of modifications and I can go in and do things. But I think some community managers are a little bit intimidated about trying to build right on what they have. And even though like something like Poros or more technical, platforms allow you to do that, you still need development experience. So it's kind of like, how do you balance that? And like, how do we get the funding and the support, right, to be able to build out the technical solutions that we need to be able to build out as community managers? Like, and I don't have the answer to that. That's an open-ended question.
I think part of the answer is a good partner ecosystem that can help that. I think we don't always need to. I'm always aware of community managers that have the envy of other teams that have like development groups and they've got all these technical resources and they can build out all these amazing things. I mean, if you look at like an UltraX with a huge community team, but then you look at Spotify that has people like 3 people running the entire community for a global B2C brand. That's super impressive. And so, but I think then you rely on technology expertise, integration, kind of use Grazidi, for example, as an SI to be able to build solutions. So yes, they've got packaged integrations, but then they can also build bespoke things that are relative to what you need to build. And I think that's an important distinguish. Like, okay, let's look at the partner ecosystem of that vendor to understand how mature that ecosystem is.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Tiza. Thanks, Vishal. I think these were great points, and I see some great engagement in the chat as well. So I think our audience has gained quite some insights.
I can see some very, very interesting comments. There's something like community of community managers or something like that.
Yeah.
Some interesting comments coming.
Yes. So I think we've learned some great pre and post AI implementation considerations as well. And I think that was one quite insightful panel, and we're almost close to the next session. So over to you, Gunja.
So that was amazing. Thank you so much, Vishal, Tirza, Michael, and Garima. This panel discussion has been super engaging, and you've just raised the tempo for the event. So thank you so much. And I'd also like to remind everyone that our subject matter experts are available in the lounge area and the booth. So please feel free to catch up with them. Now, let's join our next panel discussion on Chief Community Officer is new CMO, a fad or a fact.